Hello, welcome to my studio. Today I want to start by introducing you to this new piece I just finished sculpting. She's still not dry, but I will be putting her into the kiln and letting her finish drying there. In fact, I will have to dismantle the kiln to get her into the kiln because she's so heavy and she'll be too hard for me to lift. But let's take a look all the way around her. You can see that she has lots of different textures appliqued onto her surface. And I will be showing you a little bit later on how I do that. This piece is a commission, which I don't do very often, but this piece is a commission for a couple in California. And they requested a seated figure that could sit on a pedestal outside their home, and they wanted a natural feel to it. And they were also inspired by another piece of mine that had lots of these natural appliques on them. So that was the guiding force in this piece. Normally that's not the way I work. Normally I put my hands in the clay and see what happens, and the sculpture tells me what she wants to be. In this case, the piece did tell me that she wanted to have a bird nest on her head, and she wanted to have her arms crossed like this across her chest. Aside from that, I had to go with the seated piece on this one. So I'll be sharing more with you about other aspects of my studio as we go along. I build my sculptures using coils, the way that people often build teapots and other bowls and vessels and things. And you have to find a way to manage your clay. So what I do is I extrude my clay into coils, and I'm going to show you how we do that in just a minute. I need Rick's help for this because my clay is very heavy and has a lot of grog in it, and it's thick, and it takes a lot of muscle to pull this thing down. And then I have to catch the coils out the bottom. But then we lay them in here with some damp towels in between to kind of mind the moisture, make it not too soft, not too hard, just right so I can use it. So I'll show you how we do that. Okay, this is a wire cutter, for those of you who aren't clay people. This is how you cut through a big block of wet clay. Now this clay is a really nice clay. It's a new one I just have started using recently, but I like it. It's pretty soft, pretty easy to bend, whereas this clay, which is what I usually used to use, it's also pretty soft too. It has a lot more sand and grog in it though, so it's harder for me to pull it through the extruder. Okay, let's pull this in. I just drop a big block of clay in there. Alright. And I have it set for this size coil. What do you think? Harder or easier than the other one?
A little harder, but it was,
really? Than the stuff we usually use?
it wasn't totally filled, so we'll try it again.
All right. Try that one.
Who's the handsome helper?
This is Rick.
The sheep hired hand.
He's my smarter studio helper. He doesn't beg for food as much as Taxi does. But occasionally I have to feed him anyway. But there are lots of things I couldn't do without Rick, and this is one of them.
Ready?
Yes. I'll add these to what's left. That one got some bubbles in it, but it's okay. Now this one came up with a few little bubbles on the surface, but it doesn't matter because when I take these clay coils to use them, I will roll them even more to compress the clay even more before I put it on the piece, and then I will compress it even more when I put it on the piece, so not to worry. Cool tool called a rolling pin, and I just have a piece of clay here. This is kind of stiff, but it'll still work. And so I'm going to roll it out to approximately the thickness I think I might want for this leaf I'm going to put on. Okay, this will do. And then I'm going to just put this end over here. I like to roll this on. Some people just press it with their hands, but I like to just roll it on.
Does it make it more even?
Yes, for me it goes deeper into the little crevices. So you can see now that I have 2 leaves. And then what I would do is take a needle tool like this. And this is where it gets really tedious. I'm not going to do tons of this, but I would cut all the way around the leaf. I'm just going to do a rough cut now, but I would actually go into every single little notch on this leaf if I were doing this for real. And I would cut this down like this and take it so I can remove this little leaf. And then I would put scratches on the back. It's what we call scoring on the back. I do a lot more scratches than that. So, and that's where liquid clay can get in and kind of act as a glue
Stick.
to help it stick on. And then I would take the piece, and if I wanted to put it right here, I would just, it's already got a lot of texture on the sculpture. You can see right here, if I put it there, if I put some slip on the back, I could attach it. And then I do a lot of tooling around the edges to make sure it's smooth and blends in and looks nice like this one does. Whereas you can see just sticking it on by itself isn't good enough, but this looks a little bit better. And you want that, otherwise during the firing, something like this will just shrink up and peel up and the whole thing will fall off. But I also like to put encaustic on the surfaces of some of my pieces. Whereas this one is just glazed, this one has encaustic. And encaustic, if you don't already know, is a combination of beeswax and resin. And it makes a nice surface that has a beautiful sort of gleam to it. Now this was just recently done, and when you first do encaustic, it can develop what they call a bloom, where it looks a little teeny bit dull, but then if you lightly touch it with a soft cloth, you can see it brings a little bit of gleam out. So I'm going to be applying encaustic to a new piece in just a moment. This is an iron pot of encaustic on a heater, and I heat it up to 260 degrees, and then it's melted wax, and then I will put it on this piece, and I'll use a burner to smooth it, and you'll get to watch all of that. And I might not do a lot of talking while I'm doing it. Okay, all right, so top of this piece is a pangolin, which is the most trafficked endangered species in the world. And it is a little scaly anteater. The scales, which some people think have magical qualities, are actually basically fingernails. So I don't know why they don't just go to nail salons and pick up the fingernails. But nevertheless, they people like to kill these darling little animals in order to get their scales and also to eat their meat. And I love these little animals, and I feel very badly that humans have gotten so out of touch with our connection to nature that we feel the need to do what we do to certain things, and to the point of extinction. And this little person is based on a photograph I saw of some very wonderful people who are actually out rescuing pangolins from poachers. And there was a picture of one with a pangolin curled on their head just like this. And it's one of the few pieces I've ever done where I actually had the idea of what I was going to do before I did it. But the idea of doing something about pangolin has been going around my head for a couple of years, and finally I saw that photograph and went, that's it. Okay, I'm doing a sloppy job here, but it doesn't matter because I just wanted to get some wax on here so you could see what the next step is. I'll do a lot more careful job when I actually finish this. But what I'm already liking, and I haven't even done much yet, is I'm liking the way the wax makes the brown tones kind of glow a little bit. It makes them have a softer but almost glowing look to it. Yeah. Whereas this is flat, but this has an inner glow to it. So that's what I like about that. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to try that with this piece. If I put it on and hated it, I could put it back in the kiln and fire it, and all the wax would burn off. Oh. I could start over or put another layer of glaze or something. Okay, this is the trick here. You have to turn this way down, so you barely have a little bit of blue, a little bit, and then I'm just going to dance this across. I kind of like the places where the wax went on a little bit thick, so I may leave some thickness on there. But I'm also going to, I don't like the drips, so I'm going to go ahead and try to gently dance this flame across the piece. A lot of people don't use encaustic on three-dimensional pieces, but I do. And first time I wanted to use encaustic, I didn't know how to do it. It took me a year waiting for the sculpture. The sculpture was waiting until I found someone who could come over and play clay with me, and I showed her how to rust clay, and she showed me how to apply encaustic. And
so it was a win-win.
It was. I've never looked back. I don't know if she has.
Okay.
What do you want the people who have just been watching you to gain from what you've been demonstrating? And also, my question is how do you come up with your creations?
Okay, from what I want people to gain from just watching these little bits is just the many different techniques, and I haven't even shown you all of them, but the little techniques that I've learned and some of these are recent, acquisitions, but things that I can do to contribute to whatever the piece is going to be. And how I come up with my creations, I'm a firm believer in taking the left turn signal in my brain. When I think I'm going in a certain direction, my brain will go, hey, what about it? What? Little fairy gets on my shoulder and says, what about this idea? And I might have a troll over here that says, that's stupid, but the little fairy usually wins. And I get to go follow the fairy into a different direction, and always some surprise happens, and most often they're happy surprises. yeah, and even when things break and terrible things happen, I end up finding a way to recreate them into something better, and I'm always glad for the accident that happened. So
So it's like it was kismet meant to be.
yeah, it was kind of like it was meant to be. The pieces really, they emerge, and I'm just the conduit. I really feel like I don't create these things; they create themselves. They just use my hands. That's all, and maybe sometimes my left turn signals.